Laylatul Jinn was a night that the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, one of the nights, the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam went to give da'wah to the Jinn. And you'll remember that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned before Salatul Isha, who from among you wishes to witness tonight the affair of the Jinn? And so none of the companions responded. None of them made mention of the fact that they wished to attend, other than Abdullah ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. And so Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he mentioned, بعد أن صلى العشاء ثم انصرف استبعث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ابن مسعود فأخذ بيده حتى خرج به إلى بطحاء مكة. He said that after Salat al-Isha and after the establishment of the prayer, the Prophet ﷺ, he called for Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. And so after they prayed Isha, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he met the Messenger ﷺ, and the Messenger took him by the hand. He said, so we traveled till we reached Batha'i Makkah, which is an area in Mecca. And Ibn Mas'ud, he continues to mention, فانطلقنا حتى أتينا مكان كذا وكذا بالحجون. That we traveled until we came to such and such a place in Hujun. And Hujun is an area, as we mentioned, Ikhwan, in Mecca, that is well known to this day. بأعلى Mecca, one of the higher parts of Mecca. He said, فَخَطَّ لِي خَطًّا. That is, the Messenger ﷺ, he drew a circle for me. A circle, a line. And he said, كُن بين ظهر أو بين ظهري هذه ولا تخرج عنها ولا تخرج منها. He said that the Messenger ﷺ, he said to me, stay within this line and do not exit from it. فَإِنَّكَ إِنْ خَرَجْتَ هَلَكْتَ. For indeed, if you leave this line, you will be destroyed. You will die. He mentioned, فَإِنَّهُ سَيَنْتَهِي إِلَيْكَ رِجَالٌ فَلَا تُكَلِّمْهُمْ فَإِنَّهُمْ لَا يُكَلِّمُونَكَ. He said, for indeed there will come to you some men, so do not address them and don't speak to them, for verily they will not speak to you. He mentioned, فَكُنْتُ فِيهَا. He said, so I remained within it. فَمَضَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ أَوْ بَعُضَ شَيْئًا. He said, so the Prophet ﷺ proceeded, he went distant, or he went a distant, alayhi salatu wassalam. فَبَيْنَ أَنَا جَالِسٌ فِي خَطِّي إِذْ أَتَانِي رِجَالٌ. He said, so while I was sitting in my circle, a number of men approached me. He mentioned, كَأَنَّهُمْ زِطْ, as though they were a people from a region known as Zit, and they are a people from Hind, or Sindh rather, which is a region wherein, or a region that has or that had at that time at least a darker skinned people. He mentioned that is as it relates similarly لأشعارهم وأجسامهم, that is their hair and their bodies. He said, وَلَيْسَ عَلَيْهِمْ ثِيَابٌ وَلَا أَرَى سَوْآتَهُمْ. He said they had no garments upon them, and I could not see anything from their private areas. وَلَا أَرَى قِشْرًا. Neither could I see skin upon them. طِوَالٌ قَلِيلٌ لَحْمُهُمْ. He said they were tall, and their lahm, or the flesh on their bodies, was qalil. The flesh on their bodies was little. He mentioned, وَيَنْتَهُونَ إِلَيَّ لَا يُجَاوِزُونَ الْخَطِّ. That they came and they approached me, but they didn't go past the line. They remained outside of the line. ثُمَّ يَصْدُرُونَ إِلَى رَسُولِ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. And then they went to the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم. فَأَتَوْا فَجَعَلُوا يَرْكَبُونَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صلى الله عليه وسلم. He said, so they went to him and they began to يَرْكَبُونَ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ. That is, that they towered over him. Yani they towered over him, leaning over him, listening to the Messenger alayhi salatu wassalam. He mentioned وجعل النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم أو وجعل نبي الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقرأ عليهم. And so the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, he began to recite to them and recite upon them. That is, he recited upon them from the Quran. Again, ikhwan, as we mentioned, that the riwayat that we see in these ahadith, we have in them a clear indication of the fact that the da'wah of the Messenger revolved around qira'atul Quran. That he would recite the Quran to them and explain what it is Allah Azza wa Jal has said. And that was the most powerful method of da'wah, ikhwan. That the Messenger ﷺ would recite the Quran, explain that which was present within it, and it would have the effect that we saw it having throughout these narrations. He mentions, so the Prophet ﷺ, he recited the Quran to them. He said, وَغَشِيَتْهُ أَسْوَدَ كَبِيرًا حَالَتْ بَيْنِي وَبَيْنَهُ حَتَّى مَا أَسْمَعَ صَوْتًا. He said, and so he was overcome and overpowered, yani that is, one that towered over him, by a dark jinn from among them, that towered over him and came between me and the Prophet ﷺ, to the extent that I couldn't even hear his voice. He mentions, قال وجعلوا يأتوني فيخيلون أو يميلون حولي ويعترضون لي. He said, so they began to come towards me, and they were making towards me, and that is that they were tempting, or that they were scaring Ibn Mas'ud radiyallahu anhu. He said, وَيَعْتَرَضُونَ لِي. He said, فَأَرْعَبْتُ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا شَدِيدًا. And so I was extremely scared of them, and I was afraid of them. You can imagine, ikhwan, Abdullah ibn Mas'ud in the middle of the desert, ikhwan, with a circle around him, bus, and a group of jinn attempting, coming towards him. Not an easy mawqif. And so Ibn Mas'ud, he was honest. He said, أَرْعَبْتُ مِنْهُمْ رُعْبًا شَدِيدًا. I was afraid of them. But what is clear from the narration is that they wouldn't go past the line that the Messenger ﷺ had drawn for them. He mentions, قال فجلست قال فلما انشق عمود الصبح جعلوا يذهبون. He said, so I remained in my place, and then when morning came, they began to disappear. He said, مثل قطع السحاب. They began to disappear like clouds. حتى بقي منهم رهط. To the extent that just a small group remained with them. He said, ففرغ رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم مع الفجر. And the Messenger finished with them at the time of Fajr. فأتاني فقلت يا رسول الله سمعت لغطا شديدا فقال هذا وفد نصيبين من الجن أتوني فلما انصرفت تبعوني يسألون الرزق فأمرهم بعظام وروث. He said they were a group of the jinn, they were a delegation from among the jinn that had come to me. And he said that Ibn Mas'ud, when he queried, he said, I heard loud noises, and the Messenger explained that it was the jinn who had approached him, this delegation, and when I turned away from them to leave them, a group of them, or a few of them, followed me, and they were asking me about sustenance, about what they could eat, what was permissible for them to eat, and so I commanded them with al-'idham, with bones, and with rawth, which is the dung of animals. قال لكم كل عظم ذكر اسم الله عليه يقع في أيديكم أوفر ما يكون لحما وكل بأرة علث لدوابكم. He said that I said to them that for you, is every bone that has had the name of Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned over it. That is the bones of the food that was eaten and consumed by the believers. Every bone that has had the name of Allah Azza wa Jal mentioned over it, regardless of how much flesh and how much meat is upon those bones, yani it is permissible for you to consume that. He said, and all dung of or from the animals, yani from the dawab, from cattle. He said, وَهَذِهِ أَصْوَاتُهُمْ هِينَ دَعَوْنِي سَلَّمُوا عَلَيَّ. He said, and the voices that you heard were their voices when they called me and they approached me and they gave me salam. And so even their salam was yani loud. He mentioned that which you heard was them giving me salam, yani them greeting me. He mentions, نعم فانطلق متبرزا. And so the Prophet ﷺ left there and after to use to answer the call of nature. And so I brought him 3 stones. He said these were 3 stones that the Messenger of Allah had sought. And so among the 3 stones there were 2 stones, and the third was a rawtha. The third was actually a piece of dung. And so he took the 2 stones and he threw the dung, and he said, do you not know that it is riks? Do you not know that it is riks, it is filth? He said, so bring me another stone or another rock, and do not touch bones or dung. Then he mentioned, وَكَانَ هَؤُلَاءِ وَفْدُ جِنْ نَصِيبَيْنِ قَالَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ نِعْمَ الْجِنِّ. He said, so this was the delegation of the jinn. He said, and they were blessed jinn. He said, فَدَعَ اللَّهُ لَهُمْ أَنْ لَا يَمُرُّوا بِرَوْثَ وَلَا عَظَمْ إِلَّا وَجَدُوا طَعَامًا. He said, so he made dua to Allah Azza wa Jal for them, that they do not come across any rawtha, yani any dung or bone, except that they will have in that food. So the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he made wudu, and he, as occurs in the narration, he mentions that is Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He said, فَصَلَّ الصُّبْحِ. And so the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he prayed Fajr. قال ابن مسعود ثم إن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم جاء ثقيلا وجعا. And so the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, he was exhausted from the occasion. He was exhausted from that which had taken place. Then he mentioned, أو يكاد أن يكون وجعا مما ركبوه, or that he was close to being in pain from what he experienced in that sitting. And it was a difficult sitting even for the Messenger alayhi salatu wasalam. It was heavy upon him. He said, لَقَدْ أَرَانِي مُنْذُ لَيْلَةٍ أَنِّي أَجِدُنِي ثَقِيلًا. He said, and tonight, as the Prophet ﷺ said to him, tonight I found myself heavy. I found myself heavy. He said, ثُمَّ دَخَلَ عَلَيَّ فِي خَطِّي. And that was, in essence, this is the continuation of what we mentioned or what we didn't mention last week. He said, ثُمَّ دَخَلَ عَلَيَّ فِي خَطِّي. Then he entered upon me in the circle. And he entered the circle with me. He mentions, فَوَضَعَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ رَأْسَهُ فِي حِجْرِي. And so the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he placed his head in my lap. He said, فَتَوَسَّدَ فَخِذِي فَرَكَدَ. وَكَانَ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمْ إذا رقد نفخ. قال ثم إن هنينا أتوا. He said, the Messenger ﷺ, he took rest, or he lay down in my lap to sleep. And when he would sleep, he would exhale. And that is either a reference to the manner in which he would sleep, or a reference to him blowing and reciting prior to his sleep. Yani al-nafkh, which is yani to blow. So it is either his manner of sleeping or him reciting prayer to his sleep. He said, فبين أنا قائد ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم متوسد فخذي إذ أتوا. He said, while I was in the circle, and it was a serious night for Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. He said, while I was in that circle and the messenger was asleep on my lap, he mentioned, إِذَا أَنَا بِرِجَالٍ كَأَنَّهُمْ جِمَالٍ. He said, when he was in that position, I saw around me and approach me a number of men that resembled camels. He said, عليهم ثياب بيض طوال. He said, and upon them were white garments, and they were tall. He said, Allahu a'lamu ma bihim min al-jamal. He said, and Allah knows best what they had with them from beauty. They were beautiful. He said, فَأَتَوْا أو فَانْتَهَوْا إِلَيَّ. He said that they stopped at me, and they stopped where I was sitting. And then he said, وَقَدْ أَغْثَى رَسُولُ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ قال فأرعبت منهم أشد مما أرعبت المرأة الأولى. He said, and so I was more afraid of them than I was afraid in the first occasion. And I was more afraid of them than I was of the jinn, or of the first set of men. Now, he said, فجلس طائفة منهم عند رأس رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم وطائفة منهم عند رجليه. He said, so a group of them came and sat at the head of the Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم, and a group of them came and sat at his feet. And so you imagine the scenario, Ikhwan. Prophet ﷺ came, fell asleep in Abdullah ibn Mas'ud is in his circle, and then these tall men, beautiful, dressed in white, come. A group sit at his head, and a group sit at his feet. يعني موقف. Allah Akbar. He mentions, قال بعضهم إنه نائم. He said, some of them said that indeed he is asleep. قال بعضهم إن العين نائمة والقلب يقظان. He said, while others said, no, his eyes are asleep, but his heart is awake. فقالوا إن لصاحبكم هذا مثلا فاضربوا له مثلا. They said, that some of them said, that this companion of yours, there is an example that may be struck of him. That is, we can strike an example of what he is. And so strike an example. So some of them addressing others. Strike an example. And so they responded by saying, قال بعضهم إنه نائم. But he's asleep, they said. فقال بعضهم لبعض. And so some of them said to the others, and the rest, ما رأينا عبدا قط أوتي مثل ما أوتي هذا النبي. They said that we have not seen anyone being given that which this messenger was given. We have not seen anyone at all being given that which this prophet was given. And then some of them said, لقد أعطي هذا العبد خيرا إن عينيه نائمتان وقلبه يقظان. That indeed this servant and this slave has been given khayr. His eyes sleep, but his heart is awake. And then they said one to another, هلم نضرب له مثلا ونؤول نحن أو نضرب نحن وتؤولون أنتم. So they said, conversating between themselves, we strike an example. Khalas, we'll strike the example, you explain it. Or you strike the example and we'll explain it. So Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, between them, listening to this conversation. Now, and so he mentioned, قال بعضهم لبعض مثله كمثل سيد ابتنى بنيانا حصينا وجعل فيه مأدبا. He said his example is the example of a Sayyid, yani of a leader, who took a building as a fortress, and then he had a spread of food. He said ثم أرسل إلى الناس بالطعام فمنهم لم يأتي طعامه فمن لم يأتي طعامه عذبه عذابا شديدا ومن أجاب الداعية دخل الدار وأكل من المأدبة ومن لم يجب الداعية لم يدخل الدار ولم يأكل من المأدبة. He said, so he was like a master or a leader who had this spread of food, invited individuals to it. He said, so those who responded or those who did not respond to the invite, he punished them severely. And those who responded to the invite, then they entered his home and they ate from his food. Those who did not respond did not eat. فقالوا أولوها له يفقهها. And so they said, explain it for him that he may understand it. Explain it for who? La. For the Prophet ﷺ. Explain it for him that he may understand it. Why? Ahsant. Because his eyes are asleep but his heart is awake. And so they said one to another, a group of them said to the other, إِنَّهُ نَائِمٌ. But he's asleep. And so they responded, إِنَّ الْعَيْنَ نَائِمَ وَالْقَلْبُ يَقِظَانِ. His eyes are asleep but his heart is awake. قال آخرون إن السيد هو الرب هو رب العالمين. And so the other group, the group other than the one that struck the example, that this leader is Rabb al-Alameen. He mentions وَأَمَّا الْبُنْيَانِ فَهُوَ الْإِسْلَامِ. As far as the building, the fortress is concerned, then it is Islam. He mentioned وَالطَّعَامِ الْجَنَّةِ. And the food is Jannah. وَهُوَ هو الداعية. هو الداعية. He is the caller. Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فمن اتبعه كان في الجنة ومن لم يتبعه عذبه. فمن أطاع محمدا صلى الله عليه وسلم فقد أطاع الله ومن عصى محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم فقد عصى الله ومحمد فرق بين الناس. He said, therefore, whomsoever obeys Muhammad, he has obeyed Allah. And whomsoever disobeys Muhammad, then he has disobeyed Allah. Indeed, Muhammad is the criterion between the people. And so he mentioned, therefore, whomsoever follows him, then he is in Jannah. And whomsoever does not, then he will be punished. He said, ثُمَّ ارْتَفَعُوا. Then they rose and left. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, tonight, ghanima. He said, ثُمَّ إِنَّ رَسُولَ اللَّهِ صَلَى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ إِسْتَيْقَظ. Then the Messenger ﷺ, he woke. At that time, at that point. فقال ما رأيت أو ما رأيت يا ابن أم عبد. And so he said to him, what did you see, O Ibn Abd? Ibn Mas'ud, which is one of the nicknames for Ibn Mas'ud, Ibn Abd. And we understand, Ikhwan, therefore, why the Prophet ﷺ, as occurs in an authentic hadith, he said, رَضِيتُ لِأُمَّتِي مَا رَضِيَ بِهَا Ibn Abd. I am pleased with for this ummah with that which Ibn Abd was pleased with for this ummah. I am pleased with for this ummah that which Ibn Abd was pleased with. From the very beginning, ikhwan, from the earliest of the shabab of the Muslimin, who memorized 70 surahs, taking that from the Messenger ﷺ, and witnessed the likes of these mawaqif. Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. So when that advice after the death of the Messenger ﷺ, we find those strong pieces of advice from Abdullah ibn Mas'ud. This is not the advice of any individual, ikhwan. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, what did you see, ya Ibn Abd? He said, سمعت ما قال هؤلاء. He said, did you hear what they said? Huh? He mentioned, وهل تدري من هؤلاء? He said, and do you know who they were? قال عبد الله الله ورسوله أعلم. He said, Allah and His Messenger know best. He said, رأيت كذا وكذا. He said, I saw such and such and such and such. فقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم ما خفي علي مما قالوا شيئا. He said, indeed nothing from that which they have said was hidden from me or was obscure from me. Why? Because his eyes asleep and his heart was awake. He said, nothing from that was obscure from me. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he said, هم نفر من الملائكة فتدري ما المثل الذي ضربوه. He said, they are a group from among the malaika. And so do you know the example that they struck? قال الله ورسوله أعلم. He said, Allah and His Messenger know best. Even though Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, he heard the explanation, he heard the method and the explanation. But he said, الله ورسوله أعلم. He mentions, قال المثل الذي ضربوه الرحمن تبارك وتعالى بنى الجنة ودعا إليها عباده فمن أجابه دخل الجنة ومن لم يجبه عاقبه وعذبه. He said that indeed the example that they struck was that which is related first and foremost to Ar-Rahman. He mentioned that he built Jannah, created Jannah, and he called his worshippers to it. Whomsoever respond to him will enter Jannah, and whomsoever do not, then he will punish them. And that is the end of that heavy narration and instance and occasion of that which was witnessed by Abdullah ibn Mas'ud from the Amr of the Jinn. And perhaps, ikhwan, after Salah, I will make mention of the other narrations concerning the da'wah of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Walhamdulillah.